Rachel Holmes, and welcome to the Health and Wellness Show. How are you? Well, I'm so excited about this interview. It's brilliant, especially if you or anyone you know has ever suffered with PCOS. Robin Neilson really goes through the whole nuts and bolts of the different types of PCOS and how you can start solving the puzzle, how you can start healing your body if you are suffering. It's a phenomenal interview. Lots of resources, so get your pen and paper, have a listen, and remember, please share these videos and remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Here's Robin. Hi, Robin. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Rachel. I'm wonderful. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you for coming. I'm very excited about this topic because it's a topic that just keeps coming up. Very relevant at the moment to a lot of people who'll be watching this video. So I always like to ask my guests, first of all, what's the backstory? How did you get here and how did you become an expert in this field?
Well, I love this saying, your mess is your message, right?
That's so true.
And I came across that much later, but I thought, wow, that's me, right? And so I was one of those people who had, some very specific health concerns, like a lot of women do. In fact, my health concerns were very similar to most women. I mean, we all have hormone imbalance symptoms at one time or another. But mine started, when I was a teenager, and I had acne, and I had, just this. I was never hugely overweight, but I definitely, worked really hard at staying trim, and it was a battle, like just a constant battle. And it seemed like it was a battle that was not winnable. And I'm very competitive, and I wanted to win, and I wanted to figure out why what I was doing wasn't working. And I tried to eat healthy, and I tried to do all the right things. I tried to starve myself. I tried to over-exercise. I tried to do all those things that you talk to your clients about, right? And nothing worked. And I think that the acne and the weight were the big deal breakers for me, but I had constant pelvic pain. I had constant cramping in my lower abdomen, and I just couldn't get to go away. And it really wasn't until kind of my late 30s that I started to figure it out. And, I had huge blood sugar swings. Because of that, I had, mood swings where I'd be depressed, and then, where I'd be kind of anxious and irritable. And I remember my mom saying to my boyfriend at the time, who then turned into my husband, I'm not sure how that happened actually, she said, well, good luck with her. So it's like, okay, I'll give this a go. And so anyway, it just, there were just so many signs that came up for me. And what happened was my father started seeing an endocrinologist who was integrative in nature 20, maybe 25 years ago now, so a long time ago. And she was really at the forefront of healing, through, food and lifestyle choices and nutrients and, how we move our bodies. And because she was an endocrinologist, I was super interested. And at the time, I was just a business owner. I was running a large printing company, but I had these health issues that I really wanted to solve. And she had a book out, and in her book, she had all these case studies. And each one was me. Right. So I thought, okay, how did she solve that? How did she solve that? How did she solve that? And so, I just kept learning. And then when I was able to, I kind of then had an opportunity to have a second career. I went back to school and, learned all about what was going on and how to fix it. So that's sort of my story. And I even had like arthritic symptoms in my hands, when I was in my 20s. And I had no idea that it was directly correlated to what I was eating and sort of the state of my body.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, that's such an interesting story. And so many people and viewers who will be watching this will be resonating with that story, Robin. So thanks for sharing. So where did you go from there? How did you go for testing? How did you solve the puzzle? How did you break through?
Well, just a lot of trial and error, really, because I really was my own experiment. And so I was just, I was learning, I was just trying all these different things. And, I was able to transition my boys over to healthier eating when they were in their teens, which is not easy to do, but I just felt like as a mom, I had all the power. I had all the power because I bought all the food and I did all the cooking, right? So I don't know, just one day it dawned on me. I'm like, this is enough. I'm tired of this big roll over my pants. I'm tired not being able to wear a scoop neck shirt, because I had chest acne, right? I'm like, I was just tired. I was fed up. I was done. And, along with that comes horrible fatigue. Like, you just have all these things that are going on that are just not okay, right? It's not living a vibrant, healthy life. Mm-hmm. And so, I had a conversation with my family. I said, the food might not taste so great, but that's just the way it goes. We'll figure this out. Are you on board? And they said yes. So anyway, they grew up to be really healthy eaters and to be able to cook for themselves. And they went off to college without, gaining those 15 pounds. And, they really have thrived as far as food goes and, taking care of themselves. So really, it was just trial and error, and later, when I was in school and was able to do some testing and things, I did start to do some of that and start to figure it out. Blood chemistry was one of my biggest interests, that we could tell so much from blood work, so I learned that very early on, and really look at it from a functional integrative perspective. So, what are the systems in our bodies? How are they functioning? How are we getting oxygen around? Do we have what I call the age stealers? Like, what is stealing our youth? And those were, those are things that you can tell on blood work. What is keeping us sort of stressed? What's keeping our bodies stressed? And that you can tell from, basic blood work. I have these comprehensive panels that I like to run. And, nowadays, I don't know how it is in the UK, but I know here in the US, they only run a very small amount of tests. Only if they have a diagnosis code for it, right? So if they think that you have some sort of problem or condition or disease pending, then they can run these tests. But that small amount of tests does not tell us enough. Mm-hmm. And so we really have to take it upon ourselves to either work with an integrative practitioner or just, know what blood work to run and run it yourself. Yeah. Because we in the US can run our own blood work now. You don't have to have a practitioner. The tricky part is learning how to read it. Mm-hmm. And so, the whole goal for me was, when I was learning about this for myself, is, where do I need to be? So, in the medical perspective, right, they're looking for disease. Mm-hmm. In the integrative or functional approach, we're looking for optimum wellness, right? We're looking to prevent disease, not only prevent disease, but to stay well and to feel well. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, you want to know what the optimal ranges are for your blood work, as opposed to the disease ranges. And so the laboratory reference ranges are not very helpful, because that's, if you're outside the laboratory reference ranges, now you're in a disease state, which is great in the Western medical model, but it's not great, for being well and for feeling great. So that became a real interest of mine, and that's the kind of testing that I really like to do. And then you can get into, adrenal testing, and, gut health is hugely important. So sometimes GI testing is awesome too.
So where did you begin with the PCOS and the Institute? Would you like to give us a kind of a definitive, exactly what PCOS is and the different types of PCOS?
So PCOS stands for polycystic ovary syndrome, or polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it's a condition or a syndrome. It's not considered a disease. And what's interesting about PCOS is that every woman presents differently, so it's super hard to diagnose. And so I think what's really the biggest takeaway from our talk today, Rachel, I think, is that you don't need a diagnosis to begin to take care of yourself. Forget the diagnosis. I mean, I really think that goes with a lot of things. Don't wait for your doctor to tell you that you have some horrible disease or condition, right? If you don't feel well, do something about it. And that's why Rachel is providing this amazing podcast, right? So that you can take charge yourself. So, some of the classic symptoms of PCOS are, acne is one of them. The leading cause of infertility is due to PCOS. hair loss. So kind of male pattern hair growth or hair loss. So, maybe you have a mustache or maybe you have facial hair growth. What are some of the other symptoms? You can have, brain fog is a symptom, depression, anxiety. There are a lot of symptoms of PCOS, but I think that the main ones are, weight gain is a really huge one, and it's kind of unexplained weight gain, where you don't really know what you're doing wrong, but you can't keep the scale from creeping up, and it's really hard to lose weight. So, infertility, or if you're, perimenopausal or you're postmenopause, think back to, irregular menstrual cycles. That's a really big symptom of PCOS. Or, amenorrhea, no menstrual cycles, or really heavy, menstrual cycles, or very light, or, they just come whenever. So those are some of the main symptoms of PCOS, and they can be driven by a lot of things, but mostly PCOS is driven by insulin resistance, right? So if gone unchecked, it can lead to diabetes. It can lead to heart disease. It can lead to cancer. So, and a lot of inflammatory conditions come out of PCOS. So that's why it's so important, if you have anything that's going on with you that doesn't feel just right, you want to do something, because it can lead to something much more serious. It's much harder to reverse. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but we really deserve to feel well as much of the time as possible. Our slogan is empowering women with PCOS to transform their lives. And that's truly how we feel, because once you start feeling better, right, the sky is the limit. Your life can be as amazing as you want it to be. Do you want to go over some of the different types of PCOS?
Definitely. I think this is so helpful. Yes, please do, Robin. Yeah. All
right. So let's do that. Putting on my really sexy techno glasses here. So it depends on who you read, as far as what the different types of PCOS are. I don't really like to put it into a type, because I feel that, if you address the insulin resistance issue, I think that women with PCOS are much more prone to stress. Mm-hmm. We are less stress resilient overall. Keep in mind that insulin and cortisol are huge players in PCOS. So if you have high blood sugar, you're going to have high cortisol, your stress hormone, and vice versa. They work together from an endocrinology perspective. And that's why it's so important to address blood sugar, to address stress. But let me just give you some of the basic outlines of the phenotypes, based on really different authors and different doctors. So there are the Rotterdam PCOS phenotypes, and those have, they're all 4 different criteria, right? So the first one is polycystic ovaries on an ultrasound, with high androgen levels and irregular menstrual cycles. That's referred to as PCOS complete. The second phenotype in the Rotterdam series is the polycystic ovaries on ultrasound and irregular menstrual cycles. And the third are high androgen levels and irregular menstrual cycles. And the fourth, high androgen levels and polycystic ovaries on ultrasound. So those are your 4 different Rotterdam PCOS phenotypes. So what happens is when insulin increases, testosterone increases as well. So our ovaries just produce more testosterone. It's not a bad thing. And, one thing, cysts on our ovaries, we all have, they're actually follicles, right, where the egg matures. And if for some reason the egg doesn't mature and you don't have a regular cycle, then it becomes, a cyst, right? And that's really so many women, at least I've read at least 25% of women, if you caught their ovaries on any certain day, 25% of women could be considered, polycystic ovary, right? So it's very common, so you have to be careful with the cysts on the ovaries. It's not abnormal. What is abnormal is when there's pain, or when there are all the symptoms that we talked about, the irregular menstrual cycles, the hair growth, the infertility, the weight gain that just can't seem to come off, all those sorts of things. So that's the Rotterdam phenotypes. And then after that, we have Fiona McCullough. She's a naturopath, and I really like what she says about it. She has her 4 phenotypes. She has the type A, which is classic PCOS. That's high male hormone levels, so high androgen levels, or androgenic signs, symptoms, irregular periods or delayed ovulation, and polycystic ovaries. The second one is type B. This is classic PCOS as well, with the high androgen levels, androgenic signs, irregular periods, delayed ovulation, but normal ovaries, not polycystic. The third type is type C. That's the non-classic PCOS with high androgen levels, regular periods, 35 days or shorter, with ovulation, and then polycystic ovaries. And the fourth, the type D, which is non-classic PCOS as well, normal androgens, but irregular periods, delayed ovulation, and polycystic ovaries. So that's Dr. McCullough's list. And then there's one more that I really like, which is Dr. Laura Bryden. She's also a naturopath. And number one for her in the phenotype is insulin resistance. So that's where you have elevated insulin, glucose levels, abnormal glucose tolerance test. You may have elevated luteinizing hormone. So I kind of like this list because it really addresses more of the underlying cause. You know, a lot of the things that I've talked about so far in the signs and the different types of PCOS are really more the symptoms that we're seeing. But you really want to look at what the root cause is. So I kind of like Dr. Bryden's because she's looking at the root cause as far as the different categories. So the second one is pill-induced PCOS. So number one was insulin resistance. Number two is the birth control pill-induced PCOS. So it's where, you know, the birth control pill, we think that it regulates our cycles. We think that it's healthy because it helps to get our body back in sync, basically, but it does just the opposite. It's a completely false period. It actually suppresses progesterone even more. It's chemical. It makes our progesterone and estrogen completely out of whack. And, you know, it's synthetic, so it really predisposes us to some pretty icky things. So the birth control pill, it suppresses ovulation. That's how it works. And usually ovulation will resume once the pill is discontinued, but sometimes it can take months or even years. So that's a really big deal with the pill. And then number three, her third type is inflammatory PCOS. So that results from chronic immune activation, so your immune system's chronically activated, which is caused by stress. It can be caused by environmental toxins, intestinal permeability, and inflammatory foods. So those are some, you know, that's called inflammatory PCOS. That's probably more of what I had.
Yeah.
And then number four is hidden cause PCOS. So it's something that's blocking ovulation, like too much soy, right? Soy in our diet, thyroid disease, a vegetarian diet, iodine deficiency, just really poor food choices, artificial sweeteners, a low carb diet. So we oftentimes, you know, talk about a high carb diet, especially in the fitness industry, right? Talk about a high carb diet a lot. But what happens is, I know this especially was for me too, we can very easily go too low carb, and that's a really huge stressor on our bodies, right? So now you raise cortisol, and maybe your diet's not causing higher insulin, but the stress is causing higher insulin. So it's kind of interesting how it all works, and so we really have to like find that sweet spot for us, and we just tend to have, you know, whenever you have tend towards PCOS symptoms like that, our digestion is a little bit touchier. You know, we're more intolerant to foods. It's really easy for us to get stressed. It's harder to manage our brain chemistry. You know, everything is connected. So we just have to make sure that, you know, we find what that sweet spot is for us. And, you know, as a fitness instructor, a lot of times, you know, the fitness instructors teach more is better, right? Do the CrossFit, do the boot camps, you know, work harder, you know, eat less. And what happens is with a woman with PCOS, it actually has the opposite effect, and it makes us more stressed out. It makes us fatter. It makes us have more acne, and it causes us to lose our menstrual cycle. So all sorts of crazy things happen when we stress our bodies like that, and we're just a little bit more prone to stress. I'm a little bit more less stress resilient. So we just have to, you know, walk that tightrope a little bit more gently.
This is fascinating. This is amazing information. Absolutely amazing. So if somebody is ticking all the boxes and they're thinking, yep, that's me. Robin, where do they start? Where does somebody start? Do they look at their sleep first, their stress? Do they cut down on the exercise, or is it just go after the whole thing? What would you suggest?
Well, here at Insulite, we have PCOS.com, and our focus is really on what's called the 5-element system. And I've expanded on that, right? I think that for women, we need more than 5 elements, but there are 5 foundational elements that are critical for healing from PCOS. Mm-hmm. And the first one is really replacing nutrients that are missing. So we call it our nutraceutical solutions. And I think that we are the only company that has a proprietary blend of nutraceuticals that are specific for a lot of the things that I've already talked about. They're specific for, metabolizing testosterone better, for raising progesterone and balancing estrogen and progesterone better, for supporting stress, for helping with gentle detoxification, because there's so many things that cause our bodies to go haywire, right, that support energy. A lot of times with this, we just have zero energy. So really replacing nutrients that are missing, because that's what our bodies run on nutrients, right? Our bodies need nutrients to function. If we don't have our vitamins and minerals, our protein, our fat, our carbs, we cannot function, and things start to go south. When we're younger, our bodies actually can figure it out. They can bounce back so much easier. But as we start to age, it becomes harder and harder. But women with PCOS, like for me, it started pretty early. I was probably 12 or 13. So it can start very, very young. And there are signs before menstruation for girls, it could be impending. Right? So mood swings and blood sugar issues and digestive problems all can head you down the PCOS pathway. And so number 2 in our 5-element system is using food as medicine. Just being a little bit smarter about food, focusing on whole, real foods, getting back to a natural diet and making your food delicious and making time for food and, using food to really heal your body instead of harm your body. Let food be thy medicine, right, is Hippocrates. And I think he said that in, I don't know, way, way, way long ago. So we've known this for a very long time. And number 3 is using movement as medicine. So, sort of removing the old paradigm, which is what I grew up with. My father used to say, come running with me, let's go run, or, he'd say, your arms are too big, and so of course I take that personally and I had to go run it off, and really I just got horrible cramps in my side and it just made things worse. I couldn't seem to get better. So the whole over-exercising thing has to be changed. Yeah. Right? We have to start honoring our bodies. Does movement give us energy, or does it take energy away? Does it make us feel better, or does it suck the life out of us? Every movement that we do, this has a hormone response, right? So we need to make sure that our movement elicits the right hormone response that we want. Same thing with food. When we eat, it elicits a hormone response. What hormone response do we want? When we take nutrients, same thing. So now everything we do needs to be to promote that really balanced hormone response. And it starts with the 2 hormones, insulin and cortisol. And insulin, if you don't know what insulin does, it's produced by our pancreas, and it helps to get the sugar in our blood into our cells to burn for fuel. And what happens is when insulin is chronically elevated due to our diet or due to stress or whatever it is, then unfortunately our cells get insulin resistant, and so we start storing that sugar as fat. And so our cells don't have it to burn for fuel, so now all of a sudden we're fat and tired. Is what happens. And then cortisol is that beautiful hormone. It's our daytime hormone that our adrenal glands produce. Those little sweet glands that sit on top of our kidneys, right, that are responsible for producing over 52 hormones. Like, they are little powerhouses. But they get tired when we undereat and we overexercise, and they no longer can function properly. So it's this whole feedback loop that happens. So if you start looking at, using nutrients for hormone balance and food for hormone balance, and making sure that you eat within an hour of waking, like, that's really important. And then never going more than 5 hours between meals, so we teach all this in our 5-element system. And then number 4 is having an awareness around cravings. Cravings are not bad. Yeah. they're telling us some really important information. And what is it we need to know about what we're craving? All it means is that we've got to tweak something, right? We've got to get better sleep. Like sleep, I think, is like the major elixir. And I think that there is a European study done, and it might have been in London, that, you know, the Londoners named sleep the most luxurious activity. But here in the US, we're proud of how little sleep we get. You know, I only need 4 hours of sleep because, you know, I got to get things done. And that just wreaks havoc on our hormones. So number 4 was an awareness around cravings. And number 5 is having a support community. You know, that's something that we provide all of our clients, because we know that we need to surround ourselves with like-minded people. Right? Because toxins not only come in the form of pesticides and, icky emissions, they come in the form of people.
100%, yeah.
Right? Who are sabotaging our healthy journey. And so, you know, we found that there was a study done by the author of The Blue Zones, you know, the person who wrote the book, The Blue Zones, where, you know, people live longer and healthier than anywhere else in the world. I talk about this book so much recently, and I don't remember the author's name, but we have one here in California, and it's actually a bunch of people who live in a more toxic environment. They have the highest level of perchlorate in their water, but they're all like-minded. They all practice the same religion. And they support each other. They're very healthy people. And so as a result, their health is so much better. They live longer, they're happier, they're healthier than the average. And so it's, you know, you've got to surround yourself with people who are on your same path, who are going to support you and not put you down. So that's our 5-element system that's so critical. We have a big guide that we, you know, provide all of our clients when they purchase our system. And you've got to have an integrative approach to healing. And it doesn't matter what you're coming in with. Like even if you don't have the symptoms that we talked about today, if you have other symptoms, it's really a similar approach, right? Replacing those missing nutrients, using food as medicine, right? Movement as medicine. So it all comes down, in my mind, to balancing those two big hormones, cortisol and insulin. Because once you balance those, now you can make enough of your thyroid hormone. Now you support your thyroid in a really vibrant way. And now you support the production of your vital sex hormones, because those are the minor hormones. When we talk about hormones, we're always thinking about testosterone and progesterone and estrogen, but those are the minor hormones. Yeah. We've got to pay attention to the major hormones so that we can get everything else in sync.
Whoa, it's such an amazing topic. So interesting, Robin. And how long... is this a lifelong journey for many people now, or is it say, oh yeah, we could get you better in 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 6 months? How long does this kind of lifestyle? Is it something that we embark on for the long term?
Absolutely. So it's a long-term approach, and one of my goals, we just talked to our team this morning, and my goal is to get every woman on a healthy path for a year.
I love that.
A year. And sometimes it takes 2 years. It really depends on where you are health-wise. And then after a year or 2 years, you just keep it going.
Yeah.
Right? I can't go back to eating the way I used to eat or exercising the way I used to exercise unless I want to go back to having acne and to being fat and to having no energy, right? So it's a lifelong journey, and we all have those special genetics, right? Everybody's genetics are different, but the genetics are the loaded gun, and it's how we eat and how we exercise. And one thing I didn't mention were our thoughts.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have, special guests who are talking about this, but our thoughts become things. So our thoughts are just as hormone balancing or not hormone balancing as the food that we eat. So we have to make sure that the thoughts that we think are always supporting where we want ourselves to go. And I love the whole concept of our ego is always trying to sabotage us. And I love how I read recently about your past and how we have all these regrets and we wish it were different, but I really like the concept of just changing the story to fit our needs. So I'm in the process of, sometimes when I'm down or a bad thought comes up, I'm in the process of really rocking some of those old stories that I don't like and just turning them around to be really amazing.
Oh, great. Oh, Robin, this is fascinating. Robin, tell us about some of the programs or books or resources that some of our viewers can tap into that you've produced.
Well, we have just an amazing website. We're the largest website on PCOS. We really, our company's been around for over 11 years. We're going on our 12th year. We have the most science-based website. I think we have over 1,200 pages. We're in the process of updating our website because it's been around for that long. So it'll be a little bit prettier, a little bit more today, a little bit more mobile friendly, but you'll find a ton of resources. So you'll find a roadmap there that actually, it's so cool. It gives you kind of all the things that you need to pay attention to, to be your vibrant, healthy self. And it's a really cool little infographic. And then, I tell you about the things that could be sabotaging your health. And then we have a quiz that you can take. I think that's probably the best place to start. Right. Just go on to PCOS.com and take the quiz. And that sort of gets you into our community where we can start to support you. And then you can identify if you might have, an issue with PCOS or hormone imbalance or whatever it is for you. And then, of course, we have our 5-element system. So it's the PCOS 5-element system that's, incredible for PCOS. And we have so many miracle babies. Women were told, a really big thing is women are told with PCOS that they will never have children. And we believe it. Right? But it's just not true. It's absolutely not true. And I can tell you just so many stories, and it makes me smile when I think about it, because, the women say, oh, I'm feeling awful. What's going on? And I say, well, have you done a pregnancy test? And I do a pregnancy test. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. So that's pretty exciting. And just, one of my clients is a nurse practitioner. I'm not even sure where she's located. She's in the States somewhere. But she uses our system with all of her patients. And 2 of the gals who worked for her had no menstrual cycle. And so she put them on our system, and I think within 2 months, they began to have a regular menstrual cycle, and they've had one ever since. So it's pretty powerful stuff. And even if you're like me, if you're postmenopausal, it's fabulous. It's fabulous for helping your system just to stay balanced, helping to keep that progesterone up a little bit, and helping our adrenals to feel better, and just giving us that little boost of energy. It's so easy to fall off our path. Yeah. Like, that's the easy part. The hard part is just setting our intentions and staying the course. So if you visit our site, you'll find a ton of articles pretty much on anything that you might be experiencing. And then from there, we've got, I want to say over 62 videos that are fantastic resources for you on all sorts of different topics. And so I think that you'll really find it super useful.
We will. And if anybody wants to come and say hello to you on social media, where are you, Robin, on social?
So if you just look up, I think Insulite PCOS, you will find us. It's Insulite PCOS. Our company is Insulite Health. And we have a huge following. We have our holiday mocktail guide. So if this airs during the holidays, we will definitely have that available for you.
Fantastic. Robin, thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Rachel.